Hello there. I'm Scotty. You're not, and welcome to a very special episode of Retro Rewind. I'm gonna do Retro Rewinds all weekend. I'm gonna try to do as many as I can. I have 20 lined up. We'll see how many I do. And we're starting off with kind of a callback to my first episode. The first episode of this show I ever did was a retrospective on the story arc of the Gold Ranger in Power Rangers Zeo. So I want to do another story arc, and that from another show. It's the Real Adventures of Johnny Quest. I have the complete first season here. I gotta get the other stuff. I gotta get the '80s show. I have the right here. I have the original series here. This is the complete first season. There was only one season of the original Johnny Quest, so I have the original series here. The first season here, part 1, part 2, and then there's a season 2. I have all season 2 on my Xbox, but I want to get the physical release. And then there's also an '80s series, and there's 2 movies. I want to get the whole Johnny Quest bunch. So I grew up with Johnny Quest, mostly this version. Although I did watch Johnny Quest versus the Cyber Insects when they aired it on TNT back in the day. I was really confused how they were so young, but yeah. So this takes place when Johnny and Haji and them are, we don't know. Johnny Quest was an adventure series about a scientist named Dr. Benton Quest and a former government agent turned adventurous Race Bannon as they go through the jungle with Benton's son Johnny, his dog Bandit, and a Indian Hindu prince named Haji who becomes a part of the family. Jessie Bannon, the daughter of Race and sometimes guest star Jade, is introduced in Johnny's Golden Quest, and she's a regular character here. The show is structured in 2 very different versions. This is very much nothing like the original series. Race has a flat top and is voiced by Robert Patrick. He sounds kind of like this, whereas the original Race had a deep voice like this. And so, yeah, Benton Quest is voiced by George Segal, rest in peace, and he has a more deeper voice than Don Messick's little more higher pitched voice for the character in the '60s show. And then you have Johnny and Haji and Jesse voiced by actors I didn't look up. But yeah, and this show innovated the concept of animation, which is still pretty good animation. Watching this in 2023, almost, 3 short years. It came in 1996, so almost 20 years. 3 years short of 20 years. But anyway, 30 years, excuse me. But this looks pretty good. The CGI, although there's none in this episode per se, except for, not this one, that's the other one. There's not really in this episode per se. But they invented Quest World, which is a virtual reality world where they would become CG animated. And it is very janky. Keep in mind, Reboot came out before this, I think. So, it's not Mainframe working on it. I don't know who did the stuff. But we're not here to talk about that. This reinvented Johnny Quest. It brought in 2 new running villains. In addition to one-off villains that would show up. And then the return of Dr. Zinn in a few episodes, mostly in season 2, because they were trying to harken back to the original. We'll get that when we reach the season 2 episode. But the 2 big villains were Jeremiah Surd, who was sort of an overarching villain and played into the Quest World part of stuff. And really, his introduction episode should have been the first episode of the show, but they did a one-off with this villain named Blackjack Lee and a pirate ship. I don't know. Every time I put it in, I think that the third episode is going to start, but it's that one. But anyway, Jeremiah Surd is one of them. He's like the longest recurring villain next to Zen, I think, in this series. But the one villain I want to talk about here is the tragic character of one Ezekiel Rage. So says the Book of Rage. And in this appearance, he is voiced by Michael Bell, who you may know as Drew Pickles and Chaz Finster from Rugrats. And if you hear his voice, you automatically go, that is Drew Pickles, because you just can tell the voice. And now, I think it's a tragic character because of his backstory. And so I'm going to do this in a way where I talk about an episode, pause this, watch the next one, talk about it, pause it again, next episode, talk about it, pause it, and watch the last episode, and then wrap it all up. But we're actually going to start with his second appearance on the show. Why? Because his second appearance should have technically been the first appearance. You see, the first actual appearance in airing order was in episode 4, Rage's Burning Wheel. However, if you watch the episode, as I started watching it, I was originally gonna just watch all of them in order and then just ramble about it. But I'm like, no, I'm not gonna remember. My memory not so good, so I didn't do that. So I was maybe 10 minutes into the episode. I don't know. And I like, no, let me start over. And like, it's very adamant when you watch that episode that they have met Ezekiel Rage before. But this is his origin story. This is the first appearance of Ezekiel Rage. And it was aired as episode 9. Yeah, aired out of order. Most of it was shows in the 90s, airing stuff out of order. The sliders, this, whatever. So, let's start. We start off in Panagua, which I think is in Mexico. And there's a government agent, a spy, looking at some secret government documents. And I don't know why I always got this wrong. I think I was thinking of the Captain America backstory in the 90s Spider-Man series, where he was working for some people when he was a kid. It was not Captain America, actually. It was John Hardesky, a.k.a. the Cat, who, as a kid, was working as a spy to get some information, but then found out that they were actually German Nazi spies. Yeah, so not that maybe that was the case here, but no. This government agent is on a job. He's photographed some government documents and then gets caught. The guys take his mask off. I like his outfit here. You're watching this and you're like, okay, this, because you think of Ezekiel Rage, you see the picture in the thumbnail. He's got the hat, the flat hat, and the trench coat. And this is very much, he's wearing that. He's also wearing like a skeleton costume and mask to fit in with the crowd at this festival that they're in. And so he eventually gets out, but the mask does get taken off, and one of the guards see his face. And he runs off, and as he's just like, takes off the costume, he's like, oh, they'll never notice me. They'll never look for a businessman. And I'm thinking, the guy saw your face. I don't think that's really gonna, work. But to his surprise, his family shows up. His wife and his daughter. His wife, Abby, and his daughter, Kayla, I think is it. And, yeah. Doesn't go so well as Kayla wants to join the festival, and when he runs after her, we hear the mom, his wife, yell out the name Zeke. I was under the impression we didn't know his full name, but I guess his first name is Zeke. I don't want to hear no I got Zeke from you either. Okay. And yeah, so these guards give chase as he's in his car, and he asks for help from the government spy ship watching him, and he's like, well, we need approval from the Pentagon. But of course, the Pentagon are a bunch of dicks, and at this point in this show at least, and say, no, we can't risk an international incident, which I know I just call them dicks, but it does seem very realistic, where they're like, no, we don't want an international incident, but you could do something, like have them fly over and send a ladder down so they can climb up, sort of thing. No, they just tell him to abandon him. He's saying, I got ducklings. He's got people in there, and if something happens to them, well then you're gonna pay. And they end up, their tire gets shot, and they jump off a fucking cliff, and there's an explosion. Okay, we cut to current time, whatever that is. I don't know what the time frame is. We're now in southeastern New Mexico. They have these things that pop up that like a computer screen, and it tells you the location. It goes to a little world map and points out beep beep beep, and it tells you southeastern New Mexico. So we're still in America, of course, and the gang have gone to New Mexico to meet Dr. Hugo Smallwood. I'm sorry for your name. Because he has found some kind of mutated bat, which, if you really think about it, it's like, oh, and then they show pictures. I'm like, oh, that's rage. Is that what it is? So, yeah. And so they separate, as is the way for Johnny Quest. The kids are supposed to stay safe in the building while Dr. Quest and Race go to find Dr. Smallwood in a cave. Well, of course, Johnny's not one to sit on his butt, so he decides he and Jesse are going to climb another way for something. By the way, when we first zoom in on them, Johnny is driving. I think he's supposed to be like 14 or 15 here. Maybe he's learning how to drive. But then Race is like, nah, give me the keys. And so, yeah, so Johnny and Jesse take off, and Haji's like, a foolish dagger does not follow his, or something, I don't know. And he stays behind for now. And eventually, Race and Dr. Quest find Professor Smallwood, but he's been attacked by Ezekiel Rage. Apparently, they've found that there's some kind of poisonous gas back there. Ezekiel Rage's plan is to use it to bomb the government, that's the Pentagon. I guess the people responsible for his family's death. He carries around the Book of Rage. You don't know what's inside it, although it looks a lot like a photo album if you really look at it. But, and yeah, now he's wearing a costume. He somehow got the costume that he wore, because he dropped it outside that building. He's somehow got the costume back. It's the same costume, and his face is all gray and burnt because the explosion caused him to be burnt. But of course, it's not too graphic because it's a kids' show. But yeah, Johnny and Jesse and Haji all fall through what they're climbing on. I'm like, that's not very sturdy. There should be signs saying not to go up there. But they fall through because, of course, and Johnny talks about the breathing exercises that Haji's been teaching them. You know. Eventually they get separated. Haji, the gas gets released. And Johnny and Jesse have to fight Ezekiel Rage on a plane. They finally look at the book. The book is just a picture of his family. And so they kind of use that to their advantage too, because at one point, you think that Johnny's dead, but he's the star of the show. He's not dead. He shows up. Jesse, okay, this made me roll my eyes a little bit. So Ezekiel's trying to get away with the gas canisters, and he's got Jesse because he thinks Jesse is his daughter. He is gone by now, but Johnny manages to get up there, but Jesse hits the button. Apparently there's a fuel dump button on this thing. What vessel of any kind, plane, boat, car, would have a fuel dump fuel dump button? Why? What is the purpose of that? It makes no sense. Only in a cartoon, right? Push the button, the fuel gets dumped, and so they're gonna crash. There's only one parachute left. And so they're like, we can share it. And Ezekiel's like, no, I don't think so. And he grabs it. But then they have the book. And he has to grab onto it. And then they jump off with the parachute and survive. And the plane crashes into the side of a cliff. But since this is the first episode and we already saw the second one of his appearances, yeah, he's not dead. And there's a strange wording by Dr. Quest when the government finally shows up to help them, and he's like, I think he's dead for sure this time. And I'm like, did you overdub that in so that, because all the rest of this dictates that this is the first time we've seen Ezekiel Rage. So did you dub that in just so you can because you knew you're going to air it, or we're going to air this out of order, just put a line like this time or something? I don't know. But yeah, that's the first part of this, and that's the origin of Ezekiel Rage there. So I'll be back in just a second for you, but some other time for me, with the next part, and that is Rage's Burning Wheel. Alright, back with part 2. Rage's Burning Wheel, which I told you was actually the first appearance of the character. And boy, this one is just... Rage is now a terrorist, apparently. I mean, he was sort of a terrorist, I guess. He was going to use gas. But here, he has found a special molecule that if he puts together, if he creates... Now, they said this molecule can't be duplicated, but then he says, oh, if you go into space to do this, you can make it. And it's like, well, then it can be duplicated. He has to go into space to do it. Now he's got followers all of a sudden, and this is a different redesign, where he now has long hair. He no longer has the skull costume. He has long hair. And I guess he's voiced by 2 people in this. Someone named Aykroyd. And Michael Bell also, because at some points he sounds different. Sometimes he sounds like Michael Bell. So, I don't know. So yeah. And this molecule, if injected into the ozone, can deplete the ozone entirely. You only do it from space, I guess. So, and we cut to a space shuttle going up, space shuttle launch, where Dr. Quest and Haji are on the space shuttle. Why? Because plot. I don't get it myself, but they're there. And Johnny says, how come Haji gets to go and I don't? And Race laments about it being about his physics score. Haji is smart. What can I say? And so they're there with another female astronaut. And an astronaut whose face we don't see at first, that they refer to as Reed. It's revealed to be Ezekiel Rage, of course, and he's there to do the molecule thing. And he hijacks the space shuttle. And this is where, when I first started watching something, you know what, I think I should do the second episode first, and then this, and do it this way. Yeah. So, he hijacks the space shuttle. His people are secretly at mission control, and Race gives chase to some of Rage's people who are trying to destroy the secondary shuttle, which prevents them, which they can use in an emergency. So Race takes chase and was not able to save the shuttle. But Jesse and Johnny get stuck in mission control and are forced to hide from Rage's people. The government shows up and tells them about what Ezekiel Rage is trying to do. I think we've seen this government agent guy before. I think he was in the Jeremiah Third episode. He's basically like, we need you to go to a contact in Russia named Natasha Nakalova or something like that. And he's like, we need her to convince the Russians to let us borrow their space shuttle. And he's like, well, who's going to convince her? And they just look at him and he's like, oh no. So yeah, and apparently it's one of those things where it's the old friend type thing. She sees him and she slaps him in the face. What's that for? And she's like, Trisk. And he's like, I was just doing my job. And then she kissed him. He goes, well, what was that for? She's like, for Moscow or something like that. And he's like, well, I was just doing my job. And the 2 guards are like, he saved my life. And so they need the space shuttle to go in and save them. Rage has somehow been able to overpower 3 people and just has them tied up. as he goes to do his molecule thing. And meanwhile, back on Oath, Johnny and Jesse escape through a what do you call it? An air duct, and they need to find a way to hack into the mission control computer so they can let people back in, security back in and stuff. And they just happen to find a bunch of abandoned computers and keyboards and able to put that together. Well, these are old. I don't know if they'll work, and they do end up working because cartoon. And like I said, the animation is pretty good in this. There is some instances of CGI, such as when the computer screens are crackling. It's CG stuff, and then there's a green laser pointer that one of Rage's agents points at Johnny. When it's regular animation when it's just going, but when it's pointed at Johnny's head, it's CG and looks kind of off. Meanwhile, on the space shuttle, they've made it to the space station, which is a spinning wheel. And if you know the name of the episode, that thing's going to catch fire in space where there's no oxygen for fire to start. Science. Just saying. I mean, it does technically burn up in re-entry, which then there is oxygen. But if you're sitting just going, oh, burning wheel, it's going to burn. Okay, what's going to happen here? It's space. There's no oxygen. But, eventually Dr. Quest blows up the spaceship, the shuttle, so they can't use it to get back to Earth. And he still has his own plan, own way to do it, I guess. And Race and Natasha show up to help, and they get a hold of the thing, and they're able to escape in the shuttle. All of them. Rage is left behind to burn up, supposedly, but this guy escapes death. His first appearance, he died. He comes back. He dies again. He comes back. He dies here. 2 more episodes with this character. So, yeah, and there's no wrap up on it. There's no Dad and get back together. We follow the space station on the Earth in flames. Burning wheel. Lands in the ocean, and then end of the episode. We do get a quest world thing where they're trying to find the Saturn file. Sometimes there'll be quest world vignettes at the end. This was just stupid, trying to find sometimes they can be funny, but this is just trying to find the Saturn file, and then it's literally just a picture of Saturn, and it's deleted, and yeah, I don't know. This was fine for what it was. I did like the first episode more. This was fine, but we got 2 left, so let's keep going, shall we? Okay, now on to part 3 of this retrospective I'm doing, and with Future Rage. And something I want to talk about first before I get into it. Something I haven't mentioned yet. The opening credits and theme song. Fantastic. It's essentially just a revamped version of the Johnny Quest theme, but it's done so much better. It's got boom boom, boom boom, boom, and it's just got the whole visuals is just real good. This is the last of the season 1 episodes. Ezekiel Rage is back. The government has this thermonuclear bomb that they call Big Baby that they use to blow up a volcano, and they say the people will think it's just a volcano, but we have Big Baby too. Ezekiel Rage comes in and he steals it. Now Ezekiel Rage here looks like a combination of both versions of him. He's got the skull costume back on, but he's got the long hair, and he switches between 2 voices again, I think. But yeah, and so it is stolen, and the government sends an agent, Torgus, in to try to find it. But our crew is interrupted. They're in Quest World. We see Quest World, and it's CGI effects did not age well with this show. 2023, a show that came out in 1996, no, did not, no. Anyway, Quest rule is interrupted. It's Jessie doing some kind of exercise, but she's not able to finish it because Rage interrupts it, and he does this announcement saying he's going to do something bad, I guess. I'm not exactly sure what he's trying to say here, but they're able to track this message to the North Pole. Not one Santa Claus cameo, but everyone, including Bandit this time, go to the North Pole. And so when they get there, they decide to split up. And so Johnny and Jesse take off on the jet skis with Bandit and Haji, Race, and Dr. Quest set up a base and a perimeter, and then Dr. Quest and Race just kind of take off and leave Haji alone. There's a point we see this Eskimo guy and the Aurora Borealis, which comes into play later, with these two kids meeting with each other. There's no real meaning for that visual, but you know. And, well, Race and Dr. Quest get kidnapped by Rage, and Rage reveals his master plan. He has copied Baby 2. He created like 2 or 3 more, I think it is. And he plans on using those bombs to blow up the polar ice caps. Rage has become an eco-terrorist, if you think about it. First he wanted to destroy the ozone layer. Now he wants to blow up the polar ice cap, melt the polar ice caps, blow up whatever ice caps that will melt and flood the entire world, so I hear. Don't exactly think it works that way, but I don't know. Science is science. It's hard to dictate. I'm not going to get into it here. But yeah, if it does work that way, this is one of the most realistic cartoon depictions I've ever seen. Then, but anyway, because they're kidnapped, Johnny, Haji, and Bandit and Jesse, I guess, they try to devise a plan. First, Johnny and Jesse and Bandit sneak in, but Bandit won't shut the fuck up and starts barking, so they get found and they end up getting out. They get back to Haji, and Haji just was having a conversation with the Eskimo, who disappears when Johnny and Jesse and Bandit show up. And so they set up a plan to save their pops, basically, using the help of the Aurora Borealis. I guess this is where the episode gets, oh, they didn't have enough time. They didn't have enough content for this episode, so they had to pad the time. So Rage hears his daughter. With the power of the Aurora Borealis, he sees Jesse as his daughter. And then we get the entire recap of his origin story from the beginning of the Ezekiel Rage episode. Sans where he steals the stuff, from where his family shows up to when they have their crash. Every single moment. Are they going to have an abridged version, abbreviated? No. Every single moment from the minute his family arrives to their crash. In case you didn't know, and I'm sitting going, oh, they're padding for time here. They didn't have enough stuff to fill the whole 20-25 minute mark of this episode. Whatever. Plus commercials. So they had to pad for time. That's what this is. And, so yeah, he fully believes that Jesse is his daughter, despite the other people like, no, that's not her, it's a trick. And she's like, Daddy, you gotta let these go, they're friends. You're right, baby. No, don't listen to her. And then the government agent shows up. Bandit jumps on Rage, man, and this is where it's revealed that Rage has a robotic arm. I did not know that. I think maybe it's the first episode they showed it, or they made attention before, but yeah, he has a robotic arm. His right arm is robotic. The other one is just a regular arm, I think. But, yeah. So, Rage gets away, but they're able to stop, thanks to Dr. Quest hacking in, they're able to stop the bombs from going off. But now, if you really think about it, they should have found a way to safely destroy them. Because now the government has four or five little baby. Yeah, I don't know. But, yeah. Rage doesn't die here. It's one of the episodes, I think it's one of the only episodes he doesn't die. He doesn't die here. He just gets away. But I guess they decided, we can't kill him off every time. And he killed off both times you've seen him so far. He's died 3 times, technically, if you count his origin story. So, yeah, I think they should have stopped that. But, yeah, and I just like, it was the Aurora Borealis. I know you don't believe it, but, sort of thing. And, yeah, no Questworld thing at the end. It's just it, This was better. The animation was a little bit different too. I liked it. And this is the last one of season 1. So we're gonna jump into season 2. And when I get to discussing it, because I need to see for myself what it looks like, I will explain the information, the difference between season 1 and 2, and why it's different, and all that good stuff. But until then, I'll be right back. Alright, time for the final part of this retrospective with the episode. I believe it's called, I don't know what this trailer here is. It's called The Edge of Yesterday, which is the only Ezekiel Rage episode without Rage in the name. There is an episode with Rage in it, but it has nothing to do with Ezekiel Rage. It's about a real KGB agent. But anyway, before I get into the episode, I need to talk about the redesigns. Okay, after season 1, they decided they wanted to redesign everything. That it wasn't, people were that maybe there was too much complaining about how everything was different, so they redesigned everything to look more like the original show. Boy, did they! They also recasted almost everyone. I think everyone different except for Michael Bell, who returns as Rage here, and of course, the great Frank Welker would keep doing Jeremiah Sird. But the voice of Iris, the AI in Questworld, is the same, but everything else is different. I don't know all of the castings off the top of my head. I know that Granville Van Dusen voiced Race for a couple episodes. They also redesigned Race, and now he has his regular, looking more like this from the original series. And also Dr. Quest has been designed. Well, he still has his gray on the side. It's now a more orangish, reddish brown than the dark brown from the first season. Johnny and Jesse have also been redesigned a little bit. Jesse now wears pink instead of green for some reason. Even her Questworld thing has pink in it. Johnny is a little more younger looking design. And Haji is completely redesigned. Instead of wearing a like this with a long sleeve purple shirt, he kind of has been amalgamated to this version where he's got like the long sleeve yellow shirt with a purple vest. His jewel is back on his turban again, and he's voiced by Rob Paulson, and Jesse is now voiced by Jennifer Hale. Yeah, and so it's a bit different redesign. We'll talk about more redesigns. They wanted to change things in season 2, and it's just different redesigns. But the opening is still the same. It has the original designs of the characters from the first season, so they just were too lazy. They didn't have enough budget to redesign the opening. So, So in this episode, we start off where a crater went off. Where there's a crater where they believe that it was the meteor that killed the dinosaurs. Although by the end of the episode, we know it is something completely different. But anyway, Ezekiel Rage and his men show up. These 2 government guys are going to go in. And I believe one of them is supposed to be one of the government guys from the last episode that was in charge of the little baby. Big baby. I believe it's the same guy, because I think it's the same guys, because it's like, we're not working the government anymore. We're going to go down close to the Earth's core, I guess. 2 miles into the Earth's core, I think it is. And this is about to go down. Ezekiel Rage and his followers show up, although they're not dressed like his followers here. They're just thugs, basically. And he has been completely redesigned. His hat is gone. He's just got long hair. Still got the skull thing, but his suit is completely different. Wait till you see him in Questworld. Yep, Rage is in Questworld, and it's just, oh, boy, why did they do that? But he still got his metal arm, which looks more form-fitting of a metal arm than that little skinny one he had in the last one. And his green eyes, for some reason, I don't know. But, yeah, I don't care for this redesign. It's still Michael Bell doing a great job with the voice. He's great. Yeah, and he has this nuclear bomb. This bomb he's going to send into the Earth's crust and blow it up. And he pushes the two scientists down there with it, and then sets another explosive to blow the thing so no one can get to it. And he has set it for 7 days so that he can get to the North Pole, or he can get to Antarctica to be safe, I guess. He says he's going to end the world. I don't know. We don't fuck either way. And yeah, so we go back to Quest, the Quest base, which is in Maine. So maybe Stephen King wrote this. I don't know. I don't think we ever went to the Quest. Yeah, we did. They had Questworld in the last episode. So they're in Questworld, Johnny and Jesse, but they're taken out of Questworld. And honestly, I think the CGI looks a little bit better here. Especially later when a certain thing shows up. But I think it looks a little bit better. I think they improved it with the redesigns. Animation's pretty much... I think the animation is a little bit different too. They had a different animation... They do look kind of different, I guess. They get a message from Race and Dr. Quest, which is their only appearance in the episode, where it's they say that Johnny, you need to it's up to you and Rachel, and it keeps cutting out. Do you understand me? And then they keep cutting out, and he's like, Rachel was my mom's name. This is, I think, one of the only times we get backstory for Johnny's mom. So Johnny's mom's name was Rachel, and they search the files and find that Rachel is a time machine Dr. Quest built so he could go back in time and save Johnny's mom. However, he decided that it's not right to mess with the past so frivolously, but now this is an emergency, and it just so happens to be hooked up to Questworld. And this is where they didn't have enough plot for the runtime, so we have to pad. Although it does connect very well within the episode, but yeah, so Johnny and Jesse go into Questworld while Haji stays behind. A lot of times that's what it is, because they need someone behind the computers. Haji has gone into Questworld before, but, And yeah, we see that Jesse has pink now instead of not purple, that's Haji. Instead of green, which she looks better in green, I think. But anyway, they go through there and they open the portal, but it takes them to 65 million years ago. Where there's a motherfucking T-Rex, and they go back to the portal, but the T-Rex comes with them. And I'll tell you what, the T-Rex looks pretty good in the CG animation. It looks pretty good. Chases them. They use one of their speeders to pull it back through, and then he closes it. Haji goes for a second try, but it ends up creating a portal that starts sucking him through. And Jesse gets pulled through, and it's like 2 days into the future. So after the bomb has already gone off. However, with the way things were set up, I don't think that's plausible. And I'll explain when I get to the end of the episode. I don't think that's plausible that future should exist. Although, this whole thing ends up being a paradox anyway, but I don't know. So Johnny uses his smarts to save Jesse. Get him back out. And using these mistakes, Haji's able to figure out how to send him back. Instead of 6 months like they were going to, or 2 months, I think it was, they go back 7 days, 1 week. Because, to the beginning of the episodes, we see the whole thing happening, and only Johnny and Jesse come through on hover pads, which they're still in their Quest World uniforms. They go through and they say that they can't bring the bomb through on the hoverboard, so they jack the truck and go through. And then Rage hijacks one of his thugs' 4x4s and goes through. And this is where we get... Okay, the trucks and the 4x4 look pretty good. But Rage, it's... Oh. It's the equal to, like, you have Scorpina on Power Rangers, and she looks normal. She's a Japanese woman. When she grows up, she's this hideous monster. And it's like, how did that work? Right? How did she go from Japanese woman to, oh, because she has to be giant, they have a different looking monster. Right? Right. So, here, it's very much where he is now... But that was stock footage. That was their excuse. They tried to have a different look to Rage in the CG animation. He's just a metal skull warrior thing, and it's generic looking, and yeah. But he, during the scuffle with Johnny, he accidentally turns the bomb on, so he decides he's gonna drive the thing through a portal, but he goes through the wrong portal, ends up back with the dinosaur, and this is where I caught on to it. I'm like, oh shit, it wasn't the meteor that created the crater that they were in, it was the bomb. Now, whether or not they're trying to say that the bomb is what made the dinosaurs go extinct is beyond me. But, I don't know. But due to this explosion, Haji is forced to cut the cord with an axe. And is this the last of Quest World? Is it gone after this? Was this their... I mean, this was like... Which was episode 21, wasn't it? Episode 21. 21 episodes in. I guess there was like 5 episodes left. Maybe this was the end of Quest World. I don't know. But, I don't know. Yeah. And they're just like, I wonder what happened to Ezekiel Rage. And then we cut back to the beginning of the episode again. But this time, the government agents go down, and we see Rage's mask in the side of the wall, indicating that this is exactly what you think it is. The bomb caused the crater, not the meteor. But did the bomb cause the extinction of the dinosaurs? I don't know. I do like that when they show the T-Rex coming after him, he's still got the speeder attached to his tail. I did think that was pretty cool. And yeah, but this does create a paradox, because it's one of those things where you wouldn't know about this unless the situation happened. Johnny, Haji, and Jesse wouldn't know about Rachel if Dr. Quest didn't tell them. And so now that never happened, they don't know about it and should have never activated her, which causes a paradox. And I like to know what's going on with Dr. Quest and Race right now. Or this could be the Avengers Endgame time travel where everything happened the way it was supposed to. It seems very Back to the Future-esque, if you really think about it, where there's a crater. Could have been created by the meteor that destroyed the dinosaurs, but it's not. It's from the bomb. And it's been that the whole time, so... But now it's changed. So... Was it originally the meteor? See, it's confusing. Because if it was meant to be the bomb that created the crater the whole time, that means that the bomb should still be there. It's a paradox. It's a paradox thing. Like, it's one of those things where it's, like, time can't be fluid here. Because if the bomb created the crater in the first place, then there should technically be 2 bombs in 2 different timelines. 2 different time areas, where the one exploded, blew it up, and now there's another bomb that should still be there. That should still be, trying to stop it. I don't know. And maybe that's what the whole explosion... I don't know. It's just very confusing. It's very confusing. Try to do it. But as it pertains to the arc of one Ezekiel Rage, he dies too much. And I think I'm I'm okay to say that he's probably dead now. According to the Johnny Quest wiki page, not Wikipedia, but the wiki fandom wiki page, he's dead. He is dead. We don't see him again, so quite honestly, I'll just consider him dead. You know. But yeah, this was interesting to do. This was fun to do, recording at 4 different times. But it's going to be a long one to upload, I think. So, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen this arc? Go and watch it. There, if you have the DVDs or whatever, I think there might, at least one of them is on YouTube. I think if you can find all 4 episodes on YouTube, watch them. It's not like a complete arc like with the Gold Ranger, but it's the only 4 episodes with Rage in it, and I think he's a great villain. Michael Bell is a fantastic voice actor. Going back and watching this, he's great as the character. And the other actor, too, that's kind of combined with him. I just wish, it's technically 4 different designs, because the original design from Ezekiel Rage, he had no long hair, the skull suit, and the mask. And then from Wheel of Rage, the skull suit was gone, and he had the mask, hat, and long hair. And then in the third appearance, which Future Rage. In Future Rage, he had the skull suit back, but still the long hair and the hat. And here, no skull suit, hat's gone. 4 different redesigns for the guy, But yeah, so thank you for watching. I've been Scotty, and I'll see you in the next one.